live on the Sherry Lord Talk Show podcast. Start your day off with the Higher Vibrational Podcast with weekly guests covering spirituality, healthy foods, and so much more. Go to SherryLord.com for more info. Welcome, everybody, and hi, I'm Sherry Lord, and we appreciate you joining us this morning. And grab your coffee, your tea, your latte, and come chat with us because we have a very special guest, and it's Kurz. And we're so happy to have her on our show, and she's amazing. And we just want to talk just a little bit about her. I'm going to do a little intro, and then we're just going to have a really beautiful conversation about her. And her topic is the spiritual archetypes. So we really want to dive into that and more about who she is. So what I'm going to do right now, trying to bring it up. Sorry, you guys. Kristen is an international teacher of spirituality, religion, and metaphysics. She is an ordained minister speaker, a folklorist, a spiritualist and profiler, and author. Her award-winning book, The Spiritual Archetypes, created as a quiz entitled, What is Your Spiritual Archetypes? And she's got a guidebook. She captivates audiences and has been taken the downloads over 1 million times worldwide since it's been released. This is a huge, you guys. This is big, and we're so happy to have her. And Kristen has worked with thousands of people worldwide, supporting them in their spiritual development and growth. Some of her additional areas of interest are the Bible, the biblical imagery, religious history, mythology, folklore, and there's so much psychology. Kristen is currently pursuing her MDiv. Is that what that is?
MDiv.
Yeah, and seminary degree in biblical and studies here. We're so happy to have you, Kristen. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'd like to know a little bit more about you and how you got on your path. And how did this all unfold to the quiz? Because I'm telling you, people love your quiz. And it takes them deeper. It lets them feel more connected. And we'd like to hear your story.
Yeah, I've been in spirituality my whole life.
Wow.
My parents my dad's a spiritual teacher, and
wow.
Yeah, my mom ran one of the largest spiritual conferences internationally for about 20 years. And
wow.
The conference was really special in the way that it accepted everything. I mean, we had singing bowls, shamanism, Bible teaching, mediumship, astrology, Edgar Cayce teachings. We had everything. So I grew up around some of the biggest names in spirituality and metaphysics today. And I grew up, my whole life was spent around these people. And so I had this plethora of teachings and information. And then when I was in middle school, kind of strangely, my parents sent me to Catholic school. It had a good education, so I went to Catholic school. So I just had this very diverse background.
Yeah.
I started studying the Salem witch trials when I was 9 years old. So I just throughout my life had a very broad spectrum of what I was learning. And then when I got to about 16, we started doing sacred sites trips. So we started going to Stonehenge, Brazil, Ireland, France. So that's where a lot of my interest in spiritual and religious history came in. So I started studying that. And then when I got to about 22, I got my minister's license, and I had all these other certifications, but I got my minister's license and I started working at a spiritual center in Los Angeles. And I started counseling people spiritually, doing spiritual psychology and working with people one-on-one and counseling them. And that just kind of boomed. And that became a thing where I started working with people internationally. And then the quiz came out in 2016. And it really was just me praying and asking God, how can I help people in a way that is unique and special and really helps them in a really profound way. And the words spiritual archetypes came to me. And so it really was taking this diverse background and these people that I knew and kind of seeing these different groups, like this group seems to struggle with this. This group
Okay.
seems to do really well with this, and really just objectively looking at the path. That's one thing that I really feel like I don't feel like I fit into like one. I really try personally and professionally to look at like a bird's eye view of spirituality
Yeah.
and the different paths,
Yeah.
which is great because it gets to a place of non-judgment and really just acceptance and seeing people where they are. And that's one of my goals, is to really see and help people where they are. So the archetypes really were from this experience of, how can I help? I've seen this group struggle with this for a long time, but it seems like they don't even know they're struggling with it. Or this person seems to do really well with this. It's because they have this consciousness. And,
Okay.
so really helping people where they are on those different paths. But I mean, it was definitely divinely guided, but it was also from all of these years of experience with all of these different paths, personally and professionally.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, you just blew me away. And I'm like, what a diverse, well-rounded background you have. Very well-rounded. That is amazing. What are some of the experience that you have had as this was unfolding to this archetype types? I mean, I know can you have any examples of your own or of other people, how it's helped them?
Yeah, so one of my favorite stories was, so, when the quiz came out, I honestly, I'm not a very tech savvy person. I just opened a Facebook account. So I honestly just was like, I'm just going to make this quiz. I'm just going to
Yeah.
make these guidebooks, and I hope it helps somebody. And it just boomed. I mean, it was within 2 weeks, I had 10,000 new subscribers on my email account. I had emails from all around the world, and I wasn't expecting it at all. But one of my favorite stories at that time was, there was a gentleman who took the quiz, and I share this story in my book too, but there was a gentleman who took the quiz and was really blown away with how much he related to it. And for whatever reason, he decided to give it to his mom, the quiz to his mom. And they did not have a very good relationship. And he was sharing with me that, throughout their life, they were very different spiritual paths.
Yeah.
She didn't understand him. He didn't understand her. And it kind of just clashed. And so he was sharing that when he took his, he gave it to her. And after she took hers, she really related to hers. So they decided to switch. So, yeah, so he gave his results to her and let her read them. And then she read his and he read hers. And he said that for the first time in his life, he felt like his mother really saw him, and that they saw each other. And from that, their relationship was really able to blossom, because instead of him trying to see his mom through his lens as her child, he was able to see her spiritually. And I mean, that's really the greatest gift that we can give each other in this world, is to see each other for who we are spiritually. And so, yes, that was one of my favorite stories, was to see not even just how it impacted him or her, but how it impacted their relationship.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. There's so many relationships like that out there, where people are wanting to understand, but they don't feel they understand, Yeah, that is really, how many archetype types are they?
So I do 22 main archetypes, and then I do 2 hidden paths. The reason being is that I want everyone to see themselves in this book. With my background, there's this huge divide between the spiritual community and the religious community.
Yeah.
And again, because I see things objectively, I look at they're so the same in ways that people don't realize.
Yeah.
And so I have archetypes in here that are religious. I have archetypes that are spiritual. And then I actually include an archetype that would be an atheist, or an archetype that is the illusionist, I call it, which is like the the main population of people that would be the term asleep, people that don't even know that they're on a path. So I want everyone to be included no matter what path they're on. So it's 22 main and then the 2 hidden, which are the Doubting Thomas and the Illusionist.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. Did you get like visions of this, or was it just intuition that you used that, kind of came?
Well, when I had been praying for about 2 weeks for something, just I really wanted to do something different and special. And when I woke up and heard the spiritual archetypes, I mean, it was a very audible voice, and it kind of woke me up, and I heard that. And it wasn't so much like a vision, but it was really just kind of like flashes of all the people and different archetypes that I had known and been around through my life. So it was like, the witch, and then I would see people that I knew that would be that archetype, or the Eastern philosopher, and then I would see those archetypes. So when I was writing them, I was very clear on, this is exactly who these people are. This is who these people are. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
I can't wait to take the test. I didn't take the test, but I want to take the test. So what can we kind of focus on one or two of the archetypes, and kind of like, what's the light worker one? I mean, how do they come out to that one? What are some of their qualities,
Yeah. So the light workers, generally live in Florida and New York and around water. They're very drawn to water. It's interesting because you have dolphins in the back. That's actually their animal. They're very drawn to dolphins and animals, sea animals. They love water. They're very community based. They're generally a feminine type energy, and they love community. So they love going to spiritual events and community events that have mostly women, or that very feminine, soft energy. They are the very high vibes only kind of people, want to be around positivity. I say in the book too, they're very into making spirituality a lifestyle. So light workers are very much the kind of people that popularized spirituality in the mainstream in the ways of like juice bars, or stores that made it just tangible for everyday people, whereas spirituality used to be over here and the mainstream was over here. Light workers really made it a mainstream thing.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And people need to understand this. When people use the word witch, what is the qualities of that? And I guess people get confused with that, or they label it. You know what I'm saying? It's not meant to be labeled. Yeah.
There's a couple archetypes that have names that, and I do specify in the beginning of the book too, because, like the neoteric shaman, neoteric essentially in Latin means new or modern. So it's like the new shaman, the modern shaman. That doesn't mean that person necessarily practices shamanism, or the witch necessarily practices that. It's actually more about the patterning psychology or background. So for instance, the witch has they're more of a rebellious. They like to practice spirituality in their own way. Don't tell me what to do. Don't put me in a box. Very much like the witches throughout history. And so it's really about more of the mentality, and it talks about the history of the witch trials, and it talks about how witches don't want to be held back in any way, or that archetype wants to be held back in any way. One of the things that comes up for them is victimization, which is something obviously that witches have had throughout history. So it goes into the victimization or oppression that they feel, and how that actually becomes a struggle in their life, manifestation, spirituality. So any of the like spiritual archetype that I've worked with that have the witch archetype, they generally have situations come up where they feel oppressed. They get passed over for promotions at work. They have situations arise that are manifested that make them not get ahead or keep them oppressed in some way. And so it's looking at that victim mentality and how that actually plays out into their manifestation and into their life and into their spiritual path as well. So yeah, that's how it becomes the witch, even though they might not necessarily practice that.
Yeah.
But they also might be interested in that. Like a lot of people that have that archetype are interested in the witch trials or are interested in that history. So it becomes more of a psychology or environment.
Oh, well, very interesting. I think it's good to give clarity, is there one, can you share a couple more archetypes with us? We're really fascinated by them. I'm just listening to you and I thought, wow, which one really stands out to you? I mean, you have several, but you can pick a couple.
Yeah, well, I would say that the neoteric shaman is definitely one of the top ones. And just again, to specify that, and I get into the background of this as well. A lot of times in culture, we look at shamans throughout history, and we generally look at it in the society like that shamans were just a spiritual person in the group. They actually had many roles. They were the undertakers. They were responsible for oral history. So they were historians, essentially, for their tribes. They were medicine people, doctors. They had a whole plethora of jobs for their people. And so one of the things I talk about is how the people with the neoteric shaman archetype have that same mentality of I have to take care of everyone else.
Okay.
So they put all this on themselves. So the neoteric shaman is often somebody who had to grow up very quickly, who had to be mature at a young age, who had a lot of emotional responsibility. Perhaps their parents weren't emotionally intelligent, so they put that on their kids. So the neoteric shaman is somebody who loves nature, who connects through nature, who loves animals and connects through animals. They might do equine therapy. It could be a cowboy. It could be somebody who spends a lot of time outdoors, or somebody who literally is interested in shamanism. But then that comes there. What some of their issues are boundaries. They have an issue with boundaries, or saying no, or prioritizing themselves. And so we get into how that affects their spirituality, their spiritual path, and how to bypass that. Some of the solutions for that.
Well, that really understands people, who do service in that way. They're always got to take care of their parents.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like that helps me understand their character a little bit more, their archetype. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you.
What else? Yeah. And is there any other ones you'd like to share with us? Because this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean there's a couple of the other ones that are, there's the Eastern philosopher. That's somebody who's really into Eastern philosophies, Yogananda, Buddhism, Hinduism, those kinds of philosophies. They connect through those means. They're people who are generally patient, very, very into gratitude, enjoying the simple things in life. And what I talk about too is that there is no one path that is the path, because all of them have something really special. And that's something that I have seen in my life, and personally and professionally, is that we kind of get into this is the right way, this is the right modality, this is the right thing. And I start the book with a story about this girl who's looking for God in all things. And it's really not about the things, it's about the pursuit itself, and how when we pursue God ourselves and we pursue that relationship, all the other things kind of just fall away. So it's about how all the different paths have a purpose and have a meaning and have beautiful attributes to each and every one of them. And as a community, how we benefit each other through those attributes.
Oh, this is fascinating. It really helped me see a couple of the people that I know a little bit better. I love them all, but it gives me a better understanding, about, okay, so I see their qualities, and they got beautiful qualities, and they do. But it kind of like gets it more simplified and more clearer of that for people. And I'm sure this has helped a lot of people. What do you have going on right now? Is there anything upcoming for you? Are there any new plans you're going to be making?
Yeah, right now I'm doing a book, just like a small book,
Okay.
about different sacred sites and how they
Ooh,
relate to the archetypes. So how the different archetypes resonate with certain areas and why they resonate with those certain areas, and then the history
wow.
of those places, the spiritual and religious significance of them throughout history. Yeah, and how the different healing aspects that each archetype gets from those places. So yeah,
You've been on a lot of trips,
yeah.
is what you have said. And can you share a little bit of some of the highlights, the ones that really, shifted you or made an impact on your life?
Yeah, I started my first trip I went on was to Ireland and England, and so we did
Ooh,
the sacred sites there. And then yeah, I did France, England again, Brazil, and yeah, I've been to Mexico and yeah, lots of different places. But the thing that I always talk about is there's a humility in
okay.
faith that I feel that a lot of people have in other countries that isn't so prominent in this country.
Oh, wow.
There's a very humbleness that people have in this faith. When you're in these places like Stonehenge, or when you're in
Okay.
an amazing church with this history that the Templars were there, or when you go to the Glastonbury thorn tree, there's a real reverence in faith. And I feel like the biggest thing that I got from any of those places is really the humility
Oh, wow.
and just really, these places really have a like bring you to your knees kind of humility. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that's really needed in the world and really
Mhm.
special in these places. So, in any of those places, I think that's the one thing that's really stood out to me is really, especially when we're on the spiritual path for a long time, we can get into this, I've done it all, I know it all, I've seen it all. And I think that it's, Socrates talked about the only real wisdom is knowing we know nothing, and I think that
Yeah.
kind of humility is really what helps us on our spiritual path to continuously just go, it's not me, but it's God. It's always God. Every good thing I
Mhm.
do, everything I manifest, it's not my skills, it's God, and
Yeah.
always just bringing it
Yeah.
back to that. That's
Wow.
that's the one thing that's really stood out to me.
That's amazing. I mean, your path is it's very purposeful. You can definitely see that of unfolding everything in your life, bring you to where you are, and taking you beyond where you are.
Hmm.
I think that is just fascinating. And the other thing is about your book. I want to bring your book up because I'm going to bring it up here. We're going to be in the middle of us, so we can just kind of go with it a little bit. I want to show your book because I'm looking forward to reading this book, and I know people who has already read this book. And we want to talk about how people can take the test.
Hmm.
So let's bring this up. There we go. We're not too bad here. What can you tell us a little bit more about the book and how people can take the test and how can they buy it? Where can they
So
get it
it's
from?
published now through Satyama Publishing. It's
Yep.
available wherever books are sold, through Amazon or your local bookstore, which I very much support.
Yes.
Um, yes, always go to the local bookstores first. So yeah, you can take the quiz on Vaquero Ministries. That's my website, or on Satyama's website as well, Satyama Publishing. But yeah, it's a very, one of the things I got at the beginning was the quiz was shared everywhere, but it was shared a lot like on Facebook and social media. And I
Yeah.
remember one gentleman was saying, I really thought that this was just going to be another like quick, silly quiz. And I was
Yeah.
really in for it. I did not realize what
Oh,
I was going to get from this. So it is a quiz that, it takes a little bit of time. It takes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes,
wow.
because it really gets into the psyche of everyone. And it's really fine tuned to each path. So it takes a little bit of time. There's, 22 options for each question.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
just something that you can sit down and really, spend some time in. And then you get to see your top 3 to 5 if you have them. Not everyone does. So if somebody says, well, I didn't see my top 3, I only saw 2, that means there's just 2. So you may even just have 1. It's just those options are there because those paths may be influencing you in some way, but they also may not. You may just have 1 that's very prominent. The other thing is that you can take the quiz multiple times and take it up, a couple years down the road, because the paths do change. And I know people that were one path in 2016 that have taken it recently, and they're another path because they learned those lessons. They went through those things. It's not prominent in their life anymore. And it may come back up at some point, and it may not. So it's really interesting to see how we change on our path and what lessons come up and which ones are not prominent anymore. So yeah, you can take it a few different times and take it a couple years down the road and see where you're at.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. It's not like you're locked in. It's like, where did you grow on your individual path? Where did it take you?
Yeah.
And it can change and modify depending on how you've grown and what you've learned and evolved. I think that is so fantastic. I mean, I tell you what, everyone that's watching is going to be on your test. They're going to take the test, and they can't wait to purchase your book neither. And I tell you what, I am so happy to have had you on our show. We love having you, and we'll have you back. And again, we want you to know, go ahead and tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Just either through Satyama Publishing or Vaquero Ministries. Vaquero means cowboy in Spanish. So Vaquero. Yeah, I really liked the symbolism of the cowboy, and the original cowboys were actually priests and missionaries. So so I just really, and my husband's a cowboy, so I really liked that history, and I just thought it was a great combination. So and I have family from Mexico, so it was just so Vaquero Ministries, Cowboy in Spanish Ministries, or Satyama Publishing.
Oh my God, that's fascinating. Oh my God, this is huge. What I also want to do is let everybody know this book that you see that we have up, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a drawing for her book. So make sure you join us, not only to watch the show, but also to join after the show. So a drawing by itself, and I'll be sending that out. So anybody that wants to get this book, make sure you join us on chat. You got to be on chat to get the book. You gotta tell me you're here on the chat when we go live tomorrow, and we're going to do a drawing for the lucky winner of this. And I tell you what, you will not be disappointed. You are going to be thankful for this book. It's going to help you in your life, and it has purpose. And again, we just want to say thank you to Kristen, because she's just a beautiful, heart-centered worker and light worker, but on her path. And that she's amazing. And what she's done is really simplify it, I believe. There's more in depth with it, but she helped you simplify it, I feel, to help you accept others, and I think that's a part of it. I don't think it's everything, but it's to help you accept others without judging them. And I think this is huge. There's so many paths, if you can remember that. And that everyone path is special, even if it doesn't in your own belief system, it's just acceptance, and understanding. And there's so much more than what I'm saying that she's offering in this book. So make sure you take this test. And please put a little Q and let me know that you took the test and what type of archetype you are. We want to know. And you can also find her on our website, www.sherrylord.com/podcast. And we will have her link to get her test and a link to her pages and to her website, I believe. We have a link on all her information there. You can watch the video again there. And again, thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Sherry.